Will James Gunn's Superman be a flop? Look, an interesting conversation popped up just over the last couple days whether or not $600 million or $700 million or $800 million will be successful for James Gunn's Man of Steel film. And, you know, it gets you thinking, like, what is going to be the number? What is going to constitute this movie being a success? And it isn't just coming down to numbers, honestly. When you get into it, there is more about this movie, about things surrounding it that is going to really designate this being a success. But people want to know, what is that number? What is the number that is going to make this movie a success? Well, I'm here to break some things down for you because as we see, the conversation the other day really started with DCU updates saying 600 to 700 million prediction for Superman. And that's what he was saying here. You can kind of see that his prediction was that. You have DC or D Comic Talk says 700 to 900. I know it's a big jump. I think it will be closer to 8. But then you have Aaron Fisher say, this is not good. It would make a very low-grossing Superman film, especially with today's ticket prices. Now, I thought that was a little ridiculous. I said, you refuse to look at current state of the genre and film industry. Yes, ticket prices are up, but a movie making 600 to 700 million today is a more difficult feat than it was even 6 years ago. Why? Because people don't go to the movies, so hitting that mark is huge. Superman, I think, has the most potential out of all the comic book movies of this year to exceed expectations, and that is a big, little misspelling there, but it is a big deal because that could push it to 800 to 900 plus. But that will come down to word of mouth. 600 to 700 is the comfortable range and expected range in this economy and current state of films, especially the genre. So we're talking about the comic book movie genre. Look, I get it. When you're looking at the comic book movie genre, you expect big, huge numbers. Deadpool and Wolverine, if we take a look, made $1.3 billion. $1.3 billion. That is absolutely outrageous and huge. One, it's a rated R movie. Two, it's Deadpool. But it had a lot going for it. One, it had the Marvel branding. Two, it had Deadpool, which was a brand that was on the rise since 2015, 2016. Two, it brought Hugh Jackman back as Wolverine after we were told he was done in Logan. So, this had a lot going for it, hitting that 1.3, and it was a funny movie. It was a hilarious film. A lot of people enjoyed it. So, yes, this was a flash in the pan for the current modern day of the comic book movie genre. Here's the thing. Movies aren't as big as they were. We're not seeing as many $1 billion hits as we were in 2015, 2016, 2017, 2019, in that time frame. There's a reason for it, and there's a few reasons for it. One, the economy is crap right now. It's just a fact of life. I mean, nobody wants to go spend the amount of money it costs to go to the movies, on the concessions, taking your family, all of that. It costs a lot of money. So when you go to the movies, you're going to want to go and be selective when you go to the movies. That's not to say that you're not going to go see multiple movies throughout the year. It's just you're not going to go see movies multiple times like people were with Avengers Endgame and Captain America and things of that nature back in the 20-teens. So there is a big shift, a big difference between now and then. You also have to take a look at the quality of what is coming out right now. The quality has dropped off majorly, from VFX looking like crap to the fact of the matter that the stories just aren't that impressive at all. People are not invested with the characters. People are not invested with the stories like they were 15 years ago. So again, we take a look at everything that's encapsulating currently with the genre, currently with what's going on in the film industry, and you sit back and you say, okay, Making $600 to $700 million isn't terrible. But you then have to look at how much did the movie cost? What did it take to make this movie? Now, we don't know how much it cost to make Superman. As of right now, they probably don't have a final tally on that because they're still in post-production. But let's just say comfortably, because most superhero films, most comic book movies, specifically on a larger scale, cost anywhere between $200 and $250 million in this day and age. Okay, I'm going to err on the side of caution because DC Studios is relatively new. We're going to go with that $200 to $225 million range. Okay, and then you look at, for marketing, you're probably looking at $100 to $120 million. So you're looking at around $300 million to $325 million, somewhere in that range, $340 million at most, all in for this movie, give or take. That's marketing, that's production, okay? So it needs to make double that to break even, essentially. That's giving money to the theaters, that's getting some money back, all that kind of stuff. 600 to 700 million, that is not a flop. That is not a flop. That is basically a successful movie. That is getting eyes on the film. That is people going and seeing the film. And if people go to this movie and reception is good, if people like this movie, both critically and from the fans, if the fan and critic reception is high, and this movie makes $600 to $700 million plus, well, absolutely, it is a huge success. Again, you take a step back and you look at the larger picture and you start to see why. All right, now let's take a look back and let's, again, look at the comic book movie genre over the last number of years. As recent as Kraven, all right? Kraven the Hunter made $59 million. Now, that movie is crap. So we know it's terrible, but $59 million is all it's made worldwide. Now, this, Venom, is a huge franchise. People love these movies. It made less than $500 million. Less than $500 million. Now, Robert, Superman is one of the most recognizable superheroes and names in the entire world. You're right, and I'm not negating that. But it does have a couple things going against it, and I've never denied that. One, the DCEU failed miserably. So people were a little hesitant about DC content. Two, the comic book genre, as you can see here, is struggling. It is struggling. Venom is a huge franchise. People love Venom. People were going to see those Venom movies. The first Venom movie had no business making the kind of money it made, had no business being a success, but it was. All right? Then we have a movie like Ant-Man and the Wasp, Quantumania, which came out in 2023, $476 million. I didn't think this movie is as bad as everybody says it is. I'm not saying it's great, but I'm not saying it's as bad as everyone says it is. Doesn't even break 500 million. We have The Marvels. Not a great movie, but $200 million? Aquaman 2, The Lost Kingdom, in The Lost Kingdom. 400 doesn't even break 500 million. But again, we see people have lost confidence in DC. However, a very big bright spot, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, $845 million. That's a big chunk of change right there for a movie directed and written by, that's right, James Gunn. So you can see there's this trend of comic book movies not doing very well. Yes, we talked about Deadpool and Wolverine, but we see why that did well. The Batman, which I don't have on here, did well. Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 did very well. Here's another interesting little thing that you can find over at Statista.com. The average gross box office revenue of superhero movies worldwide from 2000 to 2024. This is a very interesting stat. So you take a look. This was the average box office revenue. So this is average. $272 million in 2000 was roughly how much the box office take would be for a superhero movie in 2000. In 2012, the average box office jumped up to $1.1 billion. Impressive. But then in 2013, it dropped. 2014, it went up. 2015. And you can see in the 2010s, it was pretty high. And it was high 700s. And then 2018 and 2019, you had your Endgames and your Infinity Wars and your Miss Marvels and your Black Panthers and your Wonder Womans, all which were very high profitable movies. 2017, 2018, 2019, very profitable movies. And look, it bumped them up to $1 billion those years. Now, we know in 2020, the pandemic, so we won't hold that against it. 2021, it dropped down to $630 million. Jumped up a little bit in 22, but the last couple years, it has been under $500 million. Interesting. So when I sit here and say a comic book movie making $600 to $700 million plus at the box office would be a success with wide praise from critics and fans, would be a success, I'm not talking out of my ass. This is looking at the statistics. This is looking at the trends of the last 24 years and seeing how the box office has been reacting to comic book movies and to what's going on in the theaters. It's really interesting. When you take a look and see somebody talking about this kind of stuff, you say, for instance, this person here says, wrong, you're taking one of the most recognized characters in the world. It needs to make Barbie and Top Gun Maverick money. $600 million would be a failure. However, it's well above the average for a comic book movie in the current state of things. Interesting. Very interesting. But they're saying these would be excuses for failure. Interesting. A movie that is making well above the average, the current average for comic book movies, and having crazy reception from film critics and fans would be an excuse for failure? That to me just sounds like somebody who is finding any reason to complain, finding any reason to say this movie is already a failure when it's not. There's no reason to say this movie is a failure at this point in time. There are people excited. There's hype around it. The teaser trailer did phenomenally well. People are excited, and the hype is going to build as more marketing comes out. That's what's going to happen. 600 to 700 million, that has been my thought for months and months and months. I'm leaning more towards this 700 million since the teaser trailer has been so successful. Once we get a full trailer, once we see more marketing, that could go up. But I'm telling you, 600 to 700 million is not a failure. As long as they get that 600-700 million, have great reception from critics and fans, and guys, let's not forget, this is the first movie in the DCU. This is all about building momentum to the larger universe. All right? This needs to bring people back. So if this makes $700 million, but has great reception, well, it's okay. Because that means people are going to be coming back for Supergirl, going to watch Lanterns on Max, going to come back for Clayface, going to come back and watch the next movie after that. That's the goal. That is what they want to do. I'm sure they would be willing to say, you know what, if we don't make 900 million and we make 700 million, that's okay as long as we are getting fans on board. And that is the truth. That is the facts. So don't listen to these haters. Don't listen to these people who think they know what they're talking about when they can easily look up stats like this. Or look up stats like this so easily. But let me know your thoughts in the comments. I know I went a little long here, but I wanted to make sure you all understood and saw what I see. And when I talk about things, this is what I'm talking about. I'm not just talking out of my ass. I do my research. I know what I'm talking about. All right, guys? So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I'd love to hear what you have to say. And yeah, share this around so everybody knows what the truth is. With all that said, I'll catch you all later.